Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. This season, it's all grit. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, we discuss the Detroit Lions' 26-23 victory over the Houston Texans, a game that looked in doubt most of the contest, kept people up late. We'll talk all aspects of this one and update where things stand in the division and the conference coming out of this win. That and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
Hi, this is Billy Sims, and you listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is James Cook, the senior sports writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle. You can also hear him on the Get Around podcast that drops on Mondays. James, good to have you here.
Good to be here on another Victory Monday.
Another Victory Monday. How many?
It's a lot in a row.
It's a lot in a row. That's a good number. I like a lot. Also joining James and I is the man who might be better at numbers than us. I don't know. The man has taught math in his life. That's Coach Jerry Angers, also former Michigan High School Coach of the Year and Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. And he's also the current scouting and training director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, we're happy to have you with us.
Oh, happy to be here, boys, especially talking with you guys as always and picking up all that knowledge from James Cook. I love it.
He is the wise one of the group. I will agree with that. Okay, guys, the Lions are now winners of 7 straight. The last time that happened was 1995, so it's been a while. As we do, let's start with your overall reaction to this win in a couple of sentences. James, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think it's the first time they've ever started 5-0 on the road games in franchise history. I mean, that's just crazy. Dan Campbell keeps up his primetime streak. He's 9-2 in primetime games, 9-1 over the last 3 years, and really 10-0. We know that there's an asterisk in that Cowboys game.
That we do. Coach, how about you?
You know, I think adversity, family, brotherhood, fighting for each other, not letting anybody down. I mean, I look at Smith, you know, I know it's supposed to be short, but I look at Smith. We hold him down, not let him play, give him his bye week so he can go home and be with his family. Dan Campbell sees the big picture and not the 1-0 picture. And then who was on the sidelines coaching those guys up nonstop, telling the defensive line, listen to their snap count, listen to their calls, listen to their checks, listen to their slides, and then go get the ball. Oh, I love this team.
So do I, Coach. So do I. The Lions were trailing 23-7 at halftime. Last week, I said the team was better than I thought they were, and that really, really surprised me. Not really, but it surprised me. The fact that we already had high expectations. And last week, I said they're better than I thought we were. They're not the same old Lions, guys. I think that just is one more piece of evidence. Not that we needed any. And then I'm going to come back to that word we've been talking about, that everyone's been talking about, is grit. Because it took grit and determination and effort and attitude and coaching. And, Coach, you said a brotherhood. Everybody working together to get this victory. And I think what might impress me the most is the focus of head coach Dan Campbell. Here he is.
It's not easy to win on the road, and we kind of got through this patch and 4 for 4, you know, and then counting the home game, Tennessee, you know, we've gotten 5 in a row after the bye. So we're finding a way. We're finding a way. And now the most important thing is, I said it before, it gets harder and harder to win now. You know, the more you win, the harder it is to continue to win. And it's really because of the psyche of, oh, man, you know, that was great. That's a good win. We all feel good. But if we don't clean up some of these errors and we just kind of sweep them under the rug and, hey, I know, but we won, that stuff will creep up and it's going to bite us. And we'll do that. The coaches are on it, and our players are going to be on it, and we just identify it and we stomp it out.
So, guys, I mean, he talked about, the game, the victory, but he talked about not just settling for week one, right? He's like continuous improvement. We've seen him with his hand going slightly up, that we just have to improve a little bit each week. James, what are some of your thoughts on takeaways on Coach Campbell there, and kind of what he had to say about, always looking to improve and it getting more difficult to win?
Yeah, I mean, the more you win, the kind of the harder it is. I mean, they're going to be the hunted. Everybody's going to give them their best game. All those cliches and everything. But they get Zadarius Smith next week, so the defensive line should be that much better. Aside from Sam Laporta maybe missing this week with a 1 week thing with his shoulder, the Lions came out of this game pretty good health wise. So I think that they should just continue to improve. And I don't know if it was because of Zadarius Smith or not, but James Houston had his best game in years, I think.
Yeah, he had an incredible game. And Coach, from your perspective, your standpoint here, I mean, Coach Campbell's talking about, hey, there's some things we didn't do. We got to clean it up. I mean, I saw some of it. You saw some of it. Everyone saw something that didn't go so well. But he talks about a good win, but we got to clean stuff up. And I guess that's probably a message you gave to your teams in the day, because, you get on a 4, 5, 6 game winning streak. Suddenly you might almost feel like, it doesn't matter what you do, you're just going to go win a game.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. I mean, especially in that game, first thing I think I sent you guys at halftime, we need to quit making t-shirts and being on social media and stuff. I mean, I talk about trap games, and Houston's a great football team. And, some of it you get complacent and you believe there's nothing we can't do. I mean, we threw for 85 yards a couple weeks ago and scored 52 points. How do you keep, and that's the thing with Dan Campbell and this coaching staff, they continue to get those guys to stay focused in that aspect. Houston came after us, man. Houston beat us. I actually at halftime, this is the first time I felt there was a team tougher than us out on a football field, but they made their breaks and we made the mistakes. And like Campbell said at halftime, there was one play here, one play there, this, that. And when you don't get those things, but what they did to get over that hump, even though everything was going against us, is totally remarkable.
Yeah, and again, the focus from the coach makes me believe that this team is going to continue to do stuff, because when your team throws 5 interceptions, you're not supposed to win the football game, but they did. So let's get into what we liked. James, let's start with you. What's one thing you liked in this game?
Well, like you said, that winning when you committed 5 turnovers. I think it was Jerry Jones in his press conference said, well, we turned over the ball 5 times, so we're not going to win that game. You can't win if you do that. Well, the Lions did.
That they did. And I think I'm going to put the grit in there again, because they didn't give up that attitude, right? It didn't matter that, the odds of them losing was 85%, at one point 92% chance of them not winning this game. And I think a big part of that comes down to, I'm going to go to the defense. The defense, especially in the second half, played lights out. I mean, there was no precipitation on the glasses this time for AG, and it didn't really matter whether there was or wasn't, because he had his entire defense dialed in that second half. Coach, Joe Mixon ran for 46 yards on 25 carries. That's 1.8 yards a carry for a guy who had rushed for over 100 yards like 3 or 4 weeks in a row. And this is also impressive because the Lions trailed in time of possession most of the game, if not all of the game, for some good chunks. And so even though they were on the field a lot, they limited that rush defense, or they limited the rush game by Houston. How big of a deal was that?
Oh, that's huge. Again, we talked about it, in the pregame and stuff, who's going to win the rushing battle. If you can, and they want to come out and do that. If they can control the run game, then CJ's got extra time. CJ's missing some key weapons, and we shut it down. We just said absolutely not. It's not going to happen. How many games in a row now is that without back going over 100 yards against us? I can't remember the exact number, but it's, we just keep adding to that. And the run game is very, very important, because you control the clock with the run game, and then the pass game falls in. And so I think that was just huge. And I think, another part was the, 0 points in the second half with 2 picks, by a corner, by what you predicted, Matt, what you predicted last week that a corner was going to get a pick this week. Well, we got 2 of them. So that's, we doubled your money on that one. But anyway, so those are, that's huge. And one other quick note on that, even though we're talking about it, if you can't run the ball, Houston's average yards to go on third down was 10.3 yards.
Wow.
10.3 yards. Stop the run, get them behind the schedule, get them behind the chains, and then the Houstons have the best game that they've had in a long time, like James said. I mean, those are huge, huge points. And look at the pass rush we had, guys. It was pretty dang good. So
It was. James, what did you see on that pass rush?
The pass rush was pretty good without bringing other guys. I mean, they loaded up the defensive line. They played Levi and Pascal at defensive end a lot, which gives you a big defensive line with Reeder and McNeil between them.
Yeah, and James Houston made his presence known in this game. I mean, James, I think you said he only played about 16 snaps,
16, yeah.
But man, the guy was making some plays. My favorite one was when it looked like CJ Stroud was going to go run for a first down, and James Houston turned on the turbojet like a heat-seeking missile, and he just said, "Not today, buddy," and he went and got him, and there was no juking him. He took him down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
and that was one of the.
Go ahead, James. I'll talk about that play afterwards.
Okay. That was one of the few times where Houston dropped back into coverage.
Yeah.
And then he read that play and came back out of coverage and came up and got Stroud in that. I mean, that was nice. And to see all the 4 sacks they got all came from defensive linemen. That was nice to see. And an addendum, I guess, to the Joe Mixon thing. The 46 yards on 25 carries is the lowest yardage total for a player with 25 or more carries in the NFL since 2013.
Whoa, like any running back?
Any running back. For somebody to have gotten 25 carries and to only get 46 yards.
The rush defense does it again.
Yeah. Well, off that play you're just talking about, that's in my notes. Favorite defensive call of the whole game. Okay, I'm gonna explain it to you a little bit, and then I'll put a cut up on it. So it's 3rd and goal, 7-0. They got a great opportunity to go up 14-0. Again, our red zone defense steps up. Houston, okay, and Pascal are inside. Okay, Houston and Pascal are inside. McNeil and Levi are on the outside. Okay, Meek is on the edge. Anzalone's on the other edge. It looks like it's press coverage. They got a thing sitting back. It's a zone blitz scheme. Okay, Pascal and Houston both drop into pass coverage. We man and match zone on the backside, and Houston and Pascal are our 2 inside linebackers and coverage. And Houston's eyes are right on him, and to show his athleticism, Amit comes. We have a 3-man rush, guys. 3-man rush. Everything's covered across the board, and we have a defensive end / outside linebacker take a very athletic quarterback, basically head on, square him up, and stop him in his tracks. Unbelievable. And that's why that was my favorite play. And then Trevor did it later, I think later in the quarter, where he just squared him up and said, "You're not running for first down." But that is my favorite zone blitz play of the whole game.
That's incredible. I love the breakdown analysis on that too, Coach. Just understanding the way it worked. And that's the great thing about our defense, you guys, is if you look at one area of the team that is most improved, it's got to be the defensive secondary. And it's improved by a long shot from last year. I mean, Branch being on the field all the time in the safety position now, Kirby Joseph arguably returning to form from 2 years ago when he played even better than last year, and then all the other additions. That means even if we aren't getting home on the defensive pass rush, the secondary can hold up better. They're making better plays. And I think their plan with CJ Stroud, which was don't let the guy run outside and break loose on containment, was perfect for this game.
Oh, it's just, yeah, just awesome. And again, all those guys with all those snap counts, all those different snap counts. Patrick O'Connor,
Yeah.
he had a sack. Okay. I mean, and again, that's that snap count. All those guys had those snap counts. Everybody's put in defensively. AG puts everybody in a position to be successful. He never puts guys, I shouldn't say never, that's a bad word to say. Hardly ever, how's that? Puts guys in a position that they're going to look bad. And it's amazing to watch them. And now we have a pretty good pass rusher coming in next week.
That we do. And, again, you said it earlier, Coach. I want to echo that. The Lions giving Zadarius Smith off this game showed they're playing the long game. They showed the reason they got him. They didn't trade for him to beat Houston. They traded for him to play in December and January and maybe February. And so, we already know how long the NFL season is. Coach, you've often said it. After week one or after training camp, you're never 100% healthy. So if you're going to go and play a position that physical and not get a 1 week rest in between, you're going to just be worn down that much more. His body got more time to heal. And so I agree. Play the long game. And you know what? It shows a little bit of, appreciation to the player that you're not trying to rush him in there. And you're saying, we appreciate you. We traded for you. We want you at your best. And that goes with that culture part, right? Where you're not just a player, you're a person to us too. And that's something that I think goes with the culture here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And, he's a coach, right? I mean, Dan Campbell played. He knows what that body feels like. But so I listened to Smith going, I wanted to play, and I was a little upset, but in the long run, he said, God, I love it here. So, and he's been here 5 days, whatever. So,
yeah, and if you saw him like during the post game, they interviewed him,
yeah.
and all that stuff. He was just, I imagine for a player, that's got to be just a great thing, just to be able to go to one of your team's games and watch it when you're not hurt. It's a different thing when you're sitting on the sidelines because you're hurt or injured or whatever. He was just able to go there and take it in. You saw him on the sidelines coaching up the other defensive linemen. Maybe that had something to do with James Houston's good day. Maybe not, but just to see that kind of thing and just everything he's said since he's been here, you can really tell he is excited to be part of this.
Now, if you look at the Lions' offense, their passing stats, stuff like that, some things don't really jump out at you too much. Nothing's going to be like, wow, this guy caught 12 passes for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. But I want to say something I liked was the play of Jamison Williams in this game. That guy made some big catches, arguably none bigger than the 3rd and 16 catch for 24 yards when he had to double catch that thing. If I'm not mistaken, the Lions were trailing 10-0 at that point. That converts a long 3rd down, and that drive ended with the Lions getting a touchdown. And so that can even go later into a critical turning point, crucial play. But, Jamison Williams got rocked on that play too, and he still held on to that catch. And James, you even said it, he barely got it with his fingertips on that second double clutch. But the effort, the determination, and just the grit that he showed there and on another play as well. On a critical play, they went to him early because maybe St. Brown was covered up more at that point, James.
Yeah, and taking that hit. I think that's a big thing for him. I think that he's kind of got the rep around the league that he's, one of these thin wide receivers who can't take a hit. And I think he's showing people that, no, that's not my game at all. And I'm going to hit you in the run blocking game too. But you see there's a couple other receivers that get that label. And I think Jamison Williams is really shedding that quick.
Coach, you got something to add on Jamison Williams?
The first one, he bobbles going across the middle because, oh my God, a little rusty. But again, what do you have? 3 catches, right?
Yes, he did. Yep. 3 catches.
three very important catches, and again, you made the point. It was a first down catch. It was in a critical situation. It was to move the chains. It was, now what that does for him is, and what it does for us is, now you can't just take off and think he's running that route. And he's been doing that going across the middle. But that one, man, he took a smack. He got smacked. But that's good stuff. Yeah.
He did. Now, I want to talk about Jared Goff, and I'm going to talk about a good thing of Jared Goff. We'll have some things to look at that we can wonder about and whatnot. But I want to talk about fourth quarter Jared Goff, okay? Because I like fourth quarter Jared Goff. Part of this reminds me, it's different, but think back to last year when the Lions were down 12 points against the Bears with 4:15 left in the game. And they had no room for error because Goff had made mistakes. The team had made mistakes throughout that game. They came back to win. Goff was perfect in that moment. And last night, when it wasn't like, hey, he hit one pass in the second or third quarter and everything suddenly was perfect. But when they needed a first down on the final drive, and it was 3rd and 6, Goff threw it to St. Brown. And he got the job done. And, post game, they asked Goff about, the game, and he said, well, I didn't think I played that bad. I've had a lot worse games than this. But he also said, mentally, I've been to the bottom. This is nowhere near that. This is not going to rattle me. And so, Coach, from a player standpoint, from a coach's standpoint, knowing that, not every NFL player, even an NFL player, not every NFL player has that mental fortitude to be able to go through stuff like that and overcome those things. Can you speak to that?
That's one of the things I wrote down. Jared's ability to flush all the negativity is unbelievable. His mental health state in any situation is unbelievable. Now, he even said it. And you said it too. I felt good. I was getting good reads. I felt I was doing the right thing. So that's part of it, to say, okay, he didn't say, oh, JMO didn't run the route right, or Laporta didn't run the route right, or we weren't on the same page. And, and the Houston Texans did a great job with 2 tip balls. Okay. And so that's the thing that he does. He just said, keep grinding one play at a time. Hey, I made a mistake. Let's get back in the huddle and not make another one. And I agree with you on that, Matt. He's just, his ability to do that is scary. And, tip ball, Hail Mary ball, 2 not on the same page balls. Now, not on the same page balls too. If he's got a half a second longer, he probably reads, oh, Laporta's inside, or JMO's going inside where I want him to go outside. But hey, those things are going to be corrected. We don't have to worry about those next week, because I'll guarantee those plays work next week.
For sure. And, I'm going to borrow a quote from Ted Lasso, which is be a goldfish and just forget about the thing before. Now, I've heard maybe that goldfish thing isn't exactly accurate. Maybe goldfish have a longer memory than Ted Lasso's given them credit for. And Ted Lasso is a fictional coach, of course, as well. But to fail 5 times, because that's what he did. He failed 5 times. To come back and keep going. James, those last drives, that final first down to set things up. Talk about that and what you saw there.
Yeah, it's just impressive, his ability to do that, to throw an interception, to forget about it, to move on. When he was with the Rams, he took a lot of heat from the fans, even almost from his coaching staff. McVay kind of at times threw him under the bus. You don't see Dan Campbell doing that. So he's matured a lot. He's taken a lot of those lessons from Los Angeles too. He was 10-7 in primetime games in Los Angeles, and a team in its Super Bowl window. And with Detroit is 9-2. He's got the same record as Dan Campbell, because they came over at the same time, in those same primetime games. But that contrast is just, in their record, is just huge. He's grown a lot as a quarterback from his time in LA. And I think that time in LA really helped shape him. And the Lions took that and have just expounded upon it a lot. And Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell deserve a lot of that credit, but Jared Goff as well.
Yeah, and Jared Goff owns it. He's classy about it. He goes, I'm not the same guy I was in Los Angeles. That interview with Jason Garrett before the game was pretty awesome. And it showed some insight to Goff, and they said, are you still motivated by things, by that trade? And he goes, I'm motivated by the narrative of what was supposed to happen to me after the trade. I don't think he has any ill will towards the Rams, to be honest with you at this point. His ill will is to what everybody thought was going to become of him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, not today, not tomorrow, not next week, not on my watch. I'm going to show you guys what's going to happen. And he's part of a collective, which is what he seems like he always wanted to be. Guys, we're like 20-some minutes into this show, and we have not talked about Jake Bates. Okay? Maybe you saved the best for last on what you liked. I mean, we have a lot more show to go yet. But, James, let's start with you. Talk to us about Jake Bates, 58-yard field goal, 52-yard game winner, the tying field goal, the winning field goal. Just talk about Jake Bates.
I mean, they talked on the TV broadcast about, him being a brick salesman, just a year ago and all that, and from Texas, so it wasn't very far from his hometown and everything like that. But I think a lot of people forget, and I didn't even hear them mention this during the thing. He was on the Texans roster last year. He was on their team for 2 weeks. He missed an extra point in a preseason game, and they cut him 2 days later. And then he signs with the UFL and then blows up from there and ends up in the same building with the Detroit Lions. But just a great thing for him, I think, to come. I mean, he's not going to shove it in their face, but
No.
when he, behind the scenes, he's probably pretty happy that he was able to do this against a team that cut him.
Right. Well, and this could almost be like a Matt Prater, Jason Hansen thing, because Kymie Fairbairn has been their kicker since 2017. And, you bring a guy in to work under them. And the crazy thing is, though, James, when he got cut, nobody went to pick him up. That's the big thing, right? The narrative was being written about him, too. Matt Prater had shown a bunch under Jason Hansen that the Broncos went and gave the guy a try. But, when Bates got cut from Houston, it was probably thought that was his last chance. And so that just another incredible thing. Jake Bates talked about his faith, and that's what guided him. That's what kept him steadfast through everything. And he's more than thankful for the blessings he has at this point. Coach, we talked about this in training camp. The Lions stayed with one guy. Everyone thought they were going to bring in other people. They just kept him in there, gave him extra reps. I mean, can you speak to what it means to a person, a player, to have the faith and the confidence of your coaching staff and what that does for you as an individual to help you grow?
Well, here's the first thing you got, and we've talked about this weekly. We talked about it when they kept him. We talked about it in the summer. The one faith, and they baby stepped him all the way to this point, right? And we talked about that on the distances of the kicks he was making. And just kept building that confidence. Okay, make this 35-yard, make this 40-yard, make this 40, boom, make a 58, make a 50, whatever, 55, 52. And that's amazing. And then you think about, and I know you guys all heard it, I'm sure you did, that Campbell talked about, or Goff, one of them talked about that. That's a situational practice that the Lions do nonstop. They started at the 40-yard line last week, made one throw, 1 second on the clock. Bates had to run out there and nail the field goal, and he did it. And that's so when they do that, it's just the coaching aspect and his faith aspect. We're in great shape with that guy. And again, I think he's a lot like Goff. We've heard that where nothing phases him, and so he doesn't. But let's not take the paint off both sides of the uprights next time. Let's try to kick it right down the middle.
Yeah, that was, I don't want to say too close for comfort, because if it goes in, that's all that matters. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that first one, I almost thought it maybe kissed the upright on the way in, but 58 yards to tie the game, 52 to win it. The Lions hit a 50-yarder, I believe, in the playoffs last year against the Rams, and that turned out to be a difference maker in the game. But this is different. This is a different situation, different stratosphere that we're heading towards, a potentially different trajectory. Now, people ask Campbell about, does he have more confidence with Jake Bates and what he can do? And Campbell did say he had confidence in Badgley. And Badgley did perform last year in the playoffs for the Lions when asked to do it. but Bates has that distance that is Matt Prater-like. And we might even see him potentially go beyond that. Now, last night on the broadcast, they did say that Bates had the new record of 58 yards, but Matt Prater actually kicked one or two 59-yarders while he was a member of the Detroit Lions. So he's not there yet, but he's knocking on the door. And, you know, seems like such a great young player. You just root for him. You want the best for him. And, you know, he's missed, one or two extra points, maybe just one, I'm not sure. But those things haven't been 100% perfect. Most kickers have not been perfect at this point. But the Lions acknowledged early on there's going to be bumps along the way. We haven't seen many yet. We could still be in for some, but I think he's shown a lot of faith and confidence to his teammates and the fans and the coaching staff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's 12 for 12. He hasn't missed a field goal yet this season. You know, and his second chance that he got with the UFL is because of they have different kickoff rules even than the XFL in the UFL. So you have to kick an 80-yard kickoff for it to be a touchback. And his thing in college was doing kickoffs, so that's what got him a job in the UFL. And then they started seeing that he could hit field goals.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And yeah, he was 12 for 12 going into the game last night, James. Making those two put him at 14 for 14 on the season for field goals. And then as far as extra points go, he's missed one extra point, I believe, if my numbers are correct here. 32 out of 33. So pretty incredible. And like you said, doing those kickoffs probably helped him develop such a strong leg. And now as he continues to dial in on that accuracy, it provides a very potentially extra option for the Lions on special teams. All right, well, then we're going to pause right here for a break, folks. When we come back, we will get into turning points and pivotal moments.
At Kroger Pharmacy, CARE is making it easy to get vaccinated. CARE is helping you stay protected from flu, COVID, and RSV. Seasonal vaccines are available 7 days a week with evening hours. CARE is giving you a shot at staying healthy this season. Walk in whenever is best and get multiple vaccines in one visit at your local Kroger Pharmacy. So come and get the protection you need while protecting those around you. Kroger Health, a world of care is in store. Visit Kroger.com/vaccines for more. Restrictions and exclusions apply. See site for details.
O'Reilly. You've got questions? O'Reilly Auto Parts has answers. Need a pro you can trust? We've got that too. No matter what you need, our professional parts people have the training and expertise to help you do things right. Deep automotive knowledge, just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Okay, guys, we're going to look at turning points and pivotal moments in this game. I'm going to say the first thing was the first drive by the Texans, right? They converted multiple third and longs on this game, and they ended up with a touchdown. So that got them going. That probably got a lot of Lions fans nervous. The Texans came out with a lot of energy in this one. And so I would say that was the first punch in the face. And then the Lions gave them a short field a lot of times. But they held them to field goals on multiple drives. I thought that was huge in this game, especially due to those short fields. We've seen it when your team is dominating early and you're not getting in the end zone. The first time's okay, but the second or third time, you start getting nervous about those missed opportunities, James. We've seen it at multiple levels. When the one team is doing well and they don't put the other team away, sometimes it comes back to haunt you. What did you see about that with the Lions defense holding them to field goals?
Yeah, that was huge to just prevent the game from being a blowout early on. I still, or in the first half, I was seeing shades of the Carolina game from 22 and the Baltimore game from 23, where I was like, oh, this is going to be the one game that they have a year where they go on the road and they just seem completely not prepared or something, something's off and they're just going to get run out of here. And then the defense started coming up. The defense started making plays, even though the offense wasn't for most of the first half there. And they changed my tune.
And that's important, Coach, because once we were at the Baltimore game. You get buried that quickly by that many points. Suddenly, the whole game plan that you've been preparing for goes out the window. And I mean, talk about that. And I mean, that becomes a bigger conundrum right there, doesn't it? Because you've been preparing all week for a certain thing, and now it doesn't matter almost.
Well, and again, go back to you guys talked about the field goals. The Baltimore game was touchdown, 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 touchdown. And there's a big difference, 28 points or 16 points, right? It's the same thing. Touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. So to hold them in that area, we were still in pretty good shape, even though they hit that touchdown, right before, halftime to go up 23. And, we talked about it. We were upset. We were going back and forth. And so the pivotal point, I have 3 pivotal points that I picked up throughout the game. First one was they opened up with an interception in the second half. Okay. Huge. We gave it right back. Okay. But then we stopped them. Okay. But we came out in 12 personnel. Okay. Double tight. And so I'm going to talk because I want to talk about Skipper. Thursday, Skipper finds out he's starting at left tackle, his first start ever in the NFL against a Houston Texans team. And he was on thin ice. He was on an island a couple times. I remember one play that, and I watch what you call it all the time, Decker, sorry. And, he goes and steps out to double the end, and then Decker kicks in and seals the linebacker off, and Gibbs or Monty run for 10 or 12 yards. Well, he continued with the double team all the way to the sidelines. Linebacker shot in and tackled us for a 1-yard loss or 1-yard gain. If Decker's in there, that's the difference. So that's a pivotal point that we came out in 12 and we were able to move the ball. Then we get another pick. We get a score. Again, things start to go. All of a sudden, all these good habits and all these good things are starting to generate the team. And then I think it would be the third or fourth one on my list was when Vika made that hit on the kickoff and he took 2 guys out. He took the blocker and he took the running back and just smashed them after a score. And I'm like, Houston's in trouble. Because I'm gonna tell you, we started. They lit up, and again, those are kind of pivotal points that I looked at and said, you guys talked about the 3 points, the field goals, which we just kept it. We kind of kept it into where we could win, and we just did some great stuff. So those are the ones that really stuck out in my mind as I saw them during the game. From a coaching standpoint, if I had the headsets on, I'd be on there going, "We're gonna win this freaking game, boys." Okay, just ask Montague, but we won't bring up that 14.7 minutes and 23 seconds left to put it to overtime to go to state finals. But I don't remember any of that stuff.
Well, let's go right back to the Carlton Davis thing. That interception to start the second half. I mean, first off, you got to love that they're playing the Dan Campbell interview. And he's like, We just need to get a couple takeaways. We need a takeaway to get things going here by the defense. And boom, it happens, right? And yes, we gave it right back to them, but C.J. Stroud, as good as he is only a second-year player in the NFL. And so maybe some doubt starts to creep in a little bit. Maybe the thought of, wow, they got me there. He jumped that route. And Carlton Davis afterwards said that was from film study. He knew what he liked to do, and he said he baited him into that a little bit. And so that was huge. And then that other interception, I didn't know Carlton Davis had that type of closing speed. It's like he's playing center field for the Detroit Tigers, and he might be faster than Curtis Granderson back in the day. I mean, he flew to that thing, and he extended a la Brian Branch would extend for that interception, or Kirby Joseph. And that right there is a 7-point stopper, plus whatever the Lions go do after that, Coach.
I'm thinking about Carlton Davis. I don't know if you guys saw his interview. And he talked about why he was so fired up about that game, because he lost to them last year with Tampa Bay. And he said there was no way he was walking off that field again, feeling like a loser, or that feeling in that pit in your stomach of, I just lost the game. And so again, film study, been there before, played them before. I love that. He's a Detroit Lion guy. You can tell that for sure. So.
Yeah, he is. I think the Lions were willing to extend him right away. I think fans are willing to extend him now. James, let's talk about Carlton Davis, what he's done with that defense, the physicality he played with, the interceptions. What did you see out of him?
Yeah. Like Jerry said, he in that game last year with the Bucs against Houston, he didn't have a particularly good game, and he was not happy with that. He was determined to have a good game. So I wouldn't be surprised that he put in even more film time than he normally would in this game, and he really had a pretty good read on Stroud. Stroud was a little bit late on that second one, I think, but
Yeah.
he made him pay for it. Um, and I think both of those interceptions are huge because if Houston goes and scores on either one of those, it becomes incredibly difficult for the Lions to win that game. I think especially the second one was kind of a backbreaker because the Texans are just kind of like just getting by in this game and oh we're still ahead and everything, and if we score this touchdown here then I think we got a pretty good chance, and then bam he takes it away, and now I think that the thing's got to be creeping in the back of your head of we're going to blow this game.
Yeah, well, let's talk about a pivotal moment or a turning point that nobody saw on the field. Coach, I heard, you're probably the master of halftime speeches yourself. And so enlighten us a little bit about the halftime speech that somebody gave in the Lions locker room.
Ben said that this is the San Francisco game from last year, except reversed.
Because the Lions were up 24-7, and he said, we're flipping the script, right?
Yep. Here's the thing is those are things that as a player, when a coach comes up with something like that, as a player, you're in there, you're trying to figure things out, and you don't know what's going on. And is Coach Campbell peeling the paint off the wall right now because he's so upset with the way we're playing, or is it a positive one? And then a Ben Johnson comes up and one of your assistants says something like that, and you as a player, you kind of look around. Even the coaches probably looked around and went, "Great point, dude. Let's go." That's just good stuff. And because it's those halftime adjustments, and we've talked about those for years, for a year and a half, and we definitely are doing some great jobs at halftime.
Yeah, and things we like. I would say all aspects of our coaching staff. Head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, everybody's getting the job done and doing it well. James, anything else you want to talk about with that you liked before we move on to anything we didn't like or concerns we have?
I'm good.
All right, Coach, you're good as well?
Yep.
All right, so we won the game. That was the most important thing, whether you win by 1, 3, 20, 30, whatever. I'm going to start with what I didn't like. The Texans jumped out big time. Now, they looked horrible the week before. That was on a Thursday night against the Jets, I believe. Most times the teams play on short weeks, don't play their best game. They had extra time to prepare for this, but they came out with tons of energy, tons of pressure, and it looked like the Lions were just disjointed from the beginning, or not from the beginning, but at the beginning of this one. Coach, did you see the similar thing? What were you seeing with the Texans start? People would talk about the Lions in the past coming out for a Monday night game. You're all hyped up because it's prime time, and it maybe fades over the game. You saw that with the Titans game at first, but Houston is a good team. So what are you thinking when they jumped out, and what do you attribute that to?
Well, I attribute first of all, you're licking your wounds after getting just shelled by the Jets, giving up 8 sacks and basically getting, how you look like, college football against a high school football team, or a high school team against, middle school. So that's growing on you. You got all those days to think about it. You have the opportunity to watch the Lions play on Sunday because you're not playing. And so you pick up some tweaks. You're not watching film today. You're just kind of watching the game. And man, it looked like they had our playbook to start. And so that's, and again, the guy comes down, he's run stopper. What does he do? He says, oh, they're throwing the little flare. I'm just going to bat it up in the air. And, so those are different things that their coach, D'Amico, is a great coach. He's been a great DC, and, he had a game plan together, especially with those extra days to prepare for it. So, and they came out and they're trying to salvage their year, even though they're 6-3. Now they're 6-4. They're still leading the league, but they wanted to stretch that league, and who doesn't want to set the stage? Broncos wanted to set the stage yesterday and be the first team to beat the Chiefs. Well, Chiefs found something in their arsenal and blocked the field goal. So, but yeah, we ran into a buzzsaw for a half.
Yeah, and and then on that first drive, I mean, Texans were completing multiple third and longs, and they got a touchdown there. They got a touchdown right before halftime. I mean, that touchdown right before halftime as well. I'm like, oh great, how did we let them come down and score so quickly? Maybe things haven't all been figured out. What were you seeing early on there, James, that you didn't like or that concerned you about the Texans jumping out so quickly like that?
Well, kind of like I said before, I just envisioned one of those road games like Carolina or Baltimore. Fortunately, it didn't turn out that way. Like Jerry said, they're in control of their division. They've got, even with the loss, they've got a 2-game lead still on their division. And so it's sort of one of the weaker divisions in football, but it's still a division of football. Every team in that division, even though Houston is 6-4, every team in that division has a negative point differential.
Wow.
They've not been outscored by their opponents all season.
There you go. Well, let's talk about the offensive line play, because that's when we got to talk about. And I'm not limited to just the offensive line, because our running game didn't go as well as it could have. 105 yards, better than what the alternative was I think 46 or so from the other side. That wasn't just on the offensive line, though. I mean, there were tight ends who couldn't get over quick enough. There were receivers who weren't able to get in. I saw guys from different positions on replays where the defenders on Houston were moving fast. Mm-hmm. And so, Coach, let's start with you. What were you seeing on the offensive line? Because that also affected Jared Goff's ability to play as well.
Well, big thing is it Elizera, their linebacker.
Yeah.
He just came back right off an injury. The dude can run sideline to sideline. He is extremely fast. And what I noticed, because I used to do this, they had him at like 6 yards. Okay. And then of course they brought on Petrie down in the box in off of tendencies. And Petrie was filling the hole. He looked like Brian Branch last year. Petrie was, and Petrie's a good football player. And then their front four does a great job. But the reason I brought up that 6 yard depth was it's awful hard for an offensive lineman to get out that far, and so the couple, even those sweeps where he shot down, there was one in the third quarter, the fourth quarter, he came down and got to Gibbs, Glasgow got tripped a little bit, and there's no way you're going to cut him off. So, and, Ryan, of course, Coach Ryan, he's one of those see ball, get ball. Open, clear cloudy, we call it. If it's a clear, take it. If it's cloudy, then scrape it. And I think that's one of the things they did. And man, they were flying and we had some problems with Skipper and a little bit, I mean, he goes in, he lines up at H-back or lines up at that X tight end, and he blocks down and washes it all the way the other side of the ways. Now he's got us thinking like, oh my God, he's in a 3-tech. Oh my God, he's a 7. Oh my God, he's outside shade. And, in 2 days notice. So, we made adjustments, and again, our rushing totals were only 105, but we turned the ball over 5 times. So that's could be 5 other carries right there. We might hit 150. So, and I think a couple of the others too is Gibbs was shooting to that sidelines. He got a couple of those down the sidelines and almost broke them, and he couldn't get those. He couldn't put his foot in the dirt to come back up. But. Again, it'll be all stuff that they'll fix. 12 personnel helped it out in the second half.
Yeah, going bigger on the offensive line definitely helped in the second half. James, what were you seeing on the offensive line that caused concern?
Yeah, well, I mean, Skipper obviously struggled, especially the early part of the first half. He got better in the second half, thankfully. You didn't seem to notice it as much in the second half, but the first half, I think I was texting you guys. I'm like, why are they running to the left side? Because they just didn't seem to be getting anything running behind Skipper. And like Jerry said, it's a completely different thing when he's the 6th lineman and he's maybe chipping on a defensive end and then going to a linebacker, or he's the fullback and he's just leading the way, but rather than taking on a defensive end head to head, 1-on-1. And the defensive ends for Houston, even without Will Anderson, are pretty good. That is one of their strengths of their defense is those defensive ends. So he had to go head to head with some pretty good guys. If it was Will Anderson, I wonder if they would have maybe flopped things around and put Sewell at left tackle to go ahead to Anderson and not expose a Goff's blind side. And they did that pregame thing where they had both of them lining up at left tackle in some of the pregame stuff, I think, to throw Houston off a little bit. But then they came out in the game and Sewell played right, his normal position the whole game, and Skipper played left the whole game. And luckily, second half, Skipper seemed to be a different player.
Yeah.
And you just weren't noticing the missed blocks. You weren't noticing defensive ends flying into the backfield like you were in the first half. And that changed a lot of things. The Lions were able to get ahead of the sticks a little bit.
Coach, before I'm going to add some stuff to Skipper, but I want you to touch on what James just said there about the pregame warm-up stuff. Was that intentional, or was that just were they just testing them both out to see who looks better?
That's intentional. And I used to do that all the time. We'd line up in a formation and run a play because there's somebody up in a box looking at you with binoculars and stuff like that. And, we'd run a play because, they're calling down, oh my God, they just ran a double toss sweep and things like that. You kind of play games. The other thing too is if Skipper went down or went, that would be the next thing. So they had to give Sewell a couple reps over there. But I think that's definitely intentional. And I told you I did that on the college level. I was the guy that was out during pregame, watching the kicks, watching the depth, how they're doing with wind, how they're doing left, how they're doing right. What are they lining up in? Are they still running the same play? Do they have their whole offensive line? I was checking numbers off, 50s here, 6. So yeah, it's all because, I was, the head coaches come to me and immediately at Saginaw going, who's missing? The D coordinator's like, well, man, they had 50 at left guard and I didn't see 67. So it's a little ploy, a little bit something to play with. That's the Lions playing chess instead of checkers.
All right. Well, the other thing I want to point out, I think we talked about it earlier, James, when you and I were watching part of the game together. Skipper had 7 career NFL snaps, I think, at left tackle. And he played an entire game at left tackle. He did say he has a much greater appreciation for the job of the left tackle after that game. I will also say, Coach Campbell talked about the fact that the injury started on Thursday, or crept up on Thursday on Decker. Sewell had been doing all the reps at right tackle for what they wanted to run for their installments this week. If Sewell's already got all that down for 3 days, you're not flip-flopping, he said. Now, maybe if it happened on Monday or Tuesday, or they knew he was going to be out ahead of time, they would have put Sewell there all week and Decker at the other spot. But I do agree it felt like a liability there on the left-hand side. And maybe if things had gotten worse, you're permanently lining up Brock right over there, and you're just helping Skipper, and you're double-teaming that left tackle. But in game, Ben Johnson was so observant of what was going on. He's like, man, Skipper's getting beat pretty good. All right, Skipper, we're going to let you get beat on this play. We're going to throw a screen pass to Dave Montgomery. It's going to go 24 yards. They purposely changed something up because what they saw was happening. That's how you slow an over-aggressive defense down, is that screen pass, and Ben Johnson did it perfectly. So that was pretty awesome. One thing we didn't like, James, you mentioned it earlier, which was the Laporta injury. It doesn't sound like it's too serious. Might be out a week. We'll see what happens, but that'll be something to monitor.
And it's just the Jags.
And it's the Jaguars, so we'll see what happens with that. Don't want to take any team too lightly, but it is a different thing. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break here again, and when we get back, we'll finish off with major storylines and any other topics of note. All right, folks, welcome back. As we get going into this, I guess the first thing we want to quickly talk about is Lions going for 2 in the third quarter. Coach, they're playing the math game, trying to make it an 8-point game. It would have been a 9-point game. They didn't get it, so it's a 10-point game. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, well, analytics says to do it, and I would do it in a heartbeat because, if you miss it, you're down 10. If you make it, you got an opportunity. If you only, it's easier to only get one score, maybe get that second. Again, the other point is the percentages of the 2-point The second 2-point are so much higher than the first one. So if you don't get it there, or you do, then they still got an opportunity to get the second time too. So it's a good ploy. You always want to try to get to within one score when you're chasing points, especially the way the Lions were chasing points the whole night. But once they didn't get it, I wasn't really concerned because I'm like 10 points, we're gonna be okay with that one.
Yeah, doing the math, I kind of felt good on it as well, being it was eight or 10 felt better than 9 versus 10. Yeah. James, were you good with it? Did you have a strong opinion either way?
No, I'm good with it because, like Jerry said, if you get it, you're within another touchdown and 2-point conversion, so you're within one score. If you don't get it, you're still 2 scores behind.
Right, because you stay at 9. You might as well be 10 at that point. Again, and it could have changed things at the end of the game, and it might have actually made Houston go for it versus settling for an extra long field goal or be a little bit more aggressive in some of their play calling. Want to give another shout out to Megan Stefanski, the Detroit Lions Fan of the Year for 2024. She is up for NFL Fan of the Year. And so if you get a chance, go to NFL.com and vote for her. You can vote as many times as you want, Lions fans. That is part of the rules here. So let's get her elected to be NFL Fan of the Year. Little bit social media stuff. The Packers fans, they were on social media talking about the Lions not getting called for that pass interference call. Again, we didn't play the Packers this week, but the Packers were on social media talking about us. And there's some irony in here. I don't know. Packers fans calling the Lions out on not getting called for penalties when there were penalties, history. Folks, I said this last year. The Lions could get penalties called their way for 10 years straight, and I still would not feel 1 ounce of guilt about it because we got about 10 years of worth of calls built up, if not more. So let's let that be. Either you guys got anything to weigh in on that one?
Well, the shot to Goff's head for the D tackle, and there's no call. Did they bring that up? And
they did not.
And of course, I'm going to say, oh yeah, and if Patrick Mahomes, if that was him, the guy would have got arrested. Who cares? Worry about your teams, Packer fans. We'll worry about ours. You worry about yours. See you on the 5th.
We play them twice, we're going to play them again. Did you hear that? I think Jared Goff knows too because they're in our division.
I think we're in the same league. Anyways.
All right, so let's take a look at the rest of the NFC North here then. Standings-wise, again, it's crazy because going into that stretch, we were hoping, hey, if they won 3 out of the 5, we would feel like things were good for the Lions. But being at 6-3 would not have you in first place in our division. Lions are 8-1, Vikings are 7-2, Packers are 6-3. The Bears have lost 3 in a row. They're now down to 4-5. James, we've already gone on the road and beaten the Vikings and the Packers in their stadiums. How are you feeling about the division right now, the way things are shaping up?
I'm feeling pretty good. The Lions are now outright the number 1 seed in the NFC. If the season ended right now, they would be the number 1 seed overall. They had the best record in the NFC by a game. The rest of the division, the Packers were off, so obviously they didn't play, but the Vikings did not look impressive in beating the Jaguars. Just barely. The Lions beat the Texans just barely, but the Texans are a good team. The Jaguars, without Trevor Lawrence especially, are not. And the Bears the last few weeks have, we talked about how this is the best conference in football, and the last few weeks the Bears have fallen off. They've just fallen off a cliff. Over the last 3 weeks, they are last in yards per drive in the NFL. They're last in completion percentage. They're last in sacks allowed. They're last in percentage of drives ending in a touchdown, and they lead the league in drives ending in a punt over the last 3 weeks. They've just kind of fallen off a cliff.
Well, yeah, and their cliff involves losing at home for the first time this season to the previously 2-7 New England Patriots. So, I think there's fallout from that Hail Mary pass against Washington and everything else that's come with it. Coach, we talked about it. We're like, hey, maybe the Lions go 3-2, 4-1 in this stretch, but they're 5-0. They're 8-1 overall. I'm not worried about them being complacent because of the way Coach Campbell talks about this team. But are you feeling really good about the NFC North? Are you looking beyond that? What are you thinking right now?
Well, I'm thinking 1-0 next week. Okay. But
of course you are.
but from a fan standpoint, yeah, I think if they, take care of home field advantage, take care of our home turf. If we win those games, where are we at? Think about it. And so those are the biggest things. Everybody's going to come in and try to get a shot. Everybody's going to come in and try to take us out there. The Packers are a really good football team. We know that. I think the Vikings got a great defense, and he's going to dial some stuff up for us. And the Bears almost got us twice last year. And I mean those are things that we have to go. Yeah, there's some turmoil. I think like the Hail Mary thing. There's no doubt but I saw Williams down on the ground yesterday, and not one of his teammates came over to pick him up. Oh my God, Detroit! I watch that all the time. There's like 6 guys reaching hands out with the Lions and the Chiefs and the good teams, where he kind of just laid there, and there was nobody to pick him up except an opposing player. So yeah, there's some concern there, but let's get to 1-0 this week.
Yeah, but again, every divisional game is going to be tough. Like you said, the Bears should have beat us twice last year. It was lucky it was 1-1. The Packers, after we went in there, they came into Ford Field and they beat us. And so, it's not going to be easy. We took care of a really hard stretch. We are now home for 4 out of the next 5 games, which is going to be big, because if you want that number 1 seed at the end of the year, it's going to take a good record, because there are some teams that are starting to catch fire, James. Who are the 2 or 3 teams that you kind of have your eye on that the Lions have to be aware of to try and get that home field so we can host the playoffs?
Philadelphia, first off, if they get their things together and their locker room doesn't fall apart like they did last year down the stretch, they are an incredibly dangerous team. And we know the San Francisco 49ers, if they start getting healthy, McCaffrey played kind of a limited role this week, but I think that they'll have him go more of a full bore here pretty soon. And, they get Deebo Samuel fully healthy maybe, and some other guys. Purdy and Kittle are having great seasons for that team. So, and Fred Warner on defense has been amazing this year as well. So a healthy San Francisco 49ers is a very dangerous team.
For sure. I'm going to say, I think right now, this Philadelphia Eagle team is more talented than the one last year. And that's because of the addition of Saquon Barkley, switching him out for DeAndre Swift. And Saquon Barkley helps them to a different level. They are a very talented roster. They were last year before that second half collapse. It's a long season, so we'll have to see what happens. But that's the team that probably scares me the most. And when I say scares me, they are the ones that we're going to compete with. The San Francisco 49ers are a team that we're going to have to watch over these next few weeks with Christian McCaffrey coming back. Arizona's getting hot. The Rams are getting healthy. Those are the teams that I think are the ones that are most likely to compete with us. I think Washington's a young team yet. I think they're going to still make some mistakes. But I think Philadelphia is the one that's going to, based on record, be the one you have to worry about the most to try and get that number 1 seed should we continue to win. Coach, what's your perception of the NFC at this point?
Well, I agree with you on all that. Philadelphia is loaded. They got some tough games coming up.
They do.
The key for us is to get to home field. That's gonna be the difference in those games. And I'm gonna go out on the limb. We have the best coaching staff in this area, on this side of the bracket. And I think our staff may be as good as the Kansas City Chiefs staff. So no matter who we play on the NFC side, we'll all coach them. And we got the players to play with anybody. So
that we do. And so, Coach, could I say we have the best coaching staff this side of the Mississippi? Because Kansas City is on the other side of the Mississippi.
You can say that. I like
all right. Okay. Quick thing on injuries, rosters, transactions, stuff like that. We know that Sam Laporta got banged up. We also should mention that a few days back, Isaiah Williams got waived to make some roster space. Well, kind of like Trevor Nowaski last year, he got claimed by somebody. And so I believe it was the Cincinnati Bengals, James?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, that's a bummer because he's a guy with some upside and some talent. I do know that Khalif Raymond and Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of have his similar style of play. So maybe that's the reason they did that. I know, James, you were hoping they'd hold on to him, though, right?
I was, just because, I was like, given the choice between him and Allen Robinson, I kind of would have gone with the younger guy. Robinson hasn't played a whole lot, and when he hasn't done a whole lot. So I wasn't sure why I know he's a bigger receiver, but he's not as big as Tim Patrick. He's not the red zone target that Patrick is. Patrick is 6'4" and 225, 230 or whatever. Robinson's 6'2", 215 maybe. So he's not the same big target as Patrick is in the red zone. And I think his best years are behind him. I think that's not surprising to say or anything like that. But I thought that they would have kept the younger guy.
Coach?
I think off of that, I totally agree with you. Position wise is a problem. Robinson had a pretty good block the other day. I did notice that he had 4 reps. I did. Here's just a little bit that from a coaching standpoint on why I think Robinson, he's a veteran. He's another veteran to help mentor a really good wide receiver we have. That's a young kid that seems to find some issues and some problems and some suspensions. So just food for thought. And also, can Robinson give us any insight on some teams that we played down the road?
Considering our ultimate goal is the Super Bowl, I know you can say everybody's goal is the Super Bowl, but we have a realistic goal of the Super Bowl. I guess if you're looking at who can contribute this year the most, it's going to be that position. I can see that with those intangibles you bring, because we've had other players who can bring some coaching stuff along with their play, even if they're not making as big of an impact on the field. So either way, wish Isaiah Williams well. I was thrilled when he made the team, love seeing him in practice, and wish him well in Cincinnati. All right, guys, it's time to get out of here. The Lions just spent 4 out of 5 on the road, 4 out of 5 of their next ones are at home. James, it starts with Jacksonville next week. You already mentioned that. We will have that preview out on Wednesday night. James, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
It'd be interesting to see how they game plan for Mac Jones, if that, because it looks like it's trending in that direction. That Trevor Lawrence is going to be out for maybe an extended period of time. So
that it does, and Mac Jones did play this past week and led his team to a 12-7 loss to the Vikings. It was close. Sam Darnold threw some interceptions in that one. Coach, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Just a couple things that happened yesterday that from a coaching. Golf in the fourth quarter, because you were already talking about that was his 10th fourth quarter comeback and 11th winning drive since he's been with the Lions. So that's a positive. A streak was broken. Okay. Don't forget the streak was broken. Saint, that 30 in a row streak was broken early, which is so him and Goff they're going to have to start a new one. But from a coaching standpoint, you're glad it's over with. So nobody talks about it anymore. And we can move forward. And of course, when that happened at the beginning of that game, from my standpoint, I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be a long day.
Yes, I can understand that for sure. And if we're looking at stats, one more stat on Jared Goff, all right? He had 4 interceptions on the season going into that game. He made it 9 now, okay? I think maybe he didn't want people talking so much and getting him to, distracted with the MVP talk. He just wants to go win some football games for the Lions. So he's up to 9 interceptions. Let's hope he got those out of his system for a while. And look, moving on back to Ford Field where we face Jacksonville. James, Coach, thanks you guys so much for being here. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. You can find more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. Tell your friends and family about the show. Like and comment on socials. Please subscribe regardless of your listening platform. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.